So once you've finished your on-deck walk-around, I know you go below to look at some of the equipment items typically stowed down below. Is there anything a skipper can do to help prepare for this part of the inspection?
It's very helpful if all the equipment can be laid out, or that you have an extra crew member ready at hand to be able to find the equipment to show you. This does save a lot of time.
It's actually quite an important point, isn't it? It should be the whole crew that understands where the equipment is stowed, not just the skipper.
It's a very important point. And so I much prefer the crew to assist in finding the equipment so they actually know where it is. And more importantly also is how to operate it.
Roger, let's start our below decks inspection by looking about how boats prepare for a rig failure. I know it's unusual, but if it does happen, it's a very serious problem. What advice would you have for people?
Well, if your mast falls down, it's a bad day. It's probably more of an inconvenience than life-threatening. It just means your passage will be a little longer than anticipated. But your priority is safety of the crew, and then is to cut free the fallen mast before it punches a hole in the side of your boat.
So if someone has to remove or cut away a damaged rig, what are the options for cutting away a rig?
Well, the first option is the manual option, and then this covers the traditional wire cutters or hydraulic cutters, depending on your preference and cost.
Hydraulic cutters are a lot more expensive, aren't they? But they are good. What about if you have rod rigging? Can you use wire cutters for that?
If you've got rod rigging, then you need what they call anvil cutters, where the two blades come together. They don't cross over as they do in wire cutters. It is possible, but size is everything. And again, hydraulic cutters will be my preference here.
So it's important to understand the type of rig that you've got to ensure that your cutting tools match your rig type.
Yes, it's essential. You need to look at the diameter of your rigging, what it's made of, and then choose the appropriate cutting tool. But the bigger the better generally, unless you're using hydraulic.
One of the requirements is for bungs to be used for through-hole fittings. Can you just explain a little bit more about why we do this?
Yes. Well, firstly, you should have had all your through-hole fittings, all the stopcocks checked before the start of the rally. And the bungs are if they fail or something goes wrong. Traditionally, the bungs were made of soft wood, but foam bungs or rubber bungs are becoming more popular. There are often many through-hole fittings on a modern yacht, and it can be up to maybe 25 to 50 through-hole fittings, and each one requires a bung. And again, this highlights the need for a location plan of where everything is, because nobody can remember where they all are.
EPIRB is one of our requirements. Most skippers should be familiar with these by now, but so what is it you're checking when you go on board, and have you got any specific tips for anyone that might be buying a new one?
If we start with, if you're going to buy a new one, the improvement is fantastic over the last year or so. They virtually all have GNSS built in, that's GPS to you and I. They also have AIS and now have a battery life that's often over 10 years. The things that we check during the inspection are the beacon is actually registered, and most countries issue a certificate. And this can be done online, and it's with a unique 15 hex digit number. We also check the battery expiry date, and that must remain in date for the duration of the rally.
Is it possible to test that your EPIRB's working?
It is possible to test, but you need to be careful to follow the manufacturer's guidelines, and we will expect you to do that before departure.
Often asked about personal EPIRBs, a PLB. Are these suitable for use as a yacht EPIRB?
They're definitely not suitable as a yacht EPIRB. Firstly, they're registered to a person, not to the yacht. And if your yacht is in trouble, you want everybody to be rescued. The other major disadvantage is the battery life is much less and cannot be guaranteed.
Most of us should now be familiar with AIS, the Automatic Identification System. Roger, any comments about this?
Yes, most rallies now require you have an AIS transponder, not just a receiver, and that's certainly the case for the ARC. There are two types of AIS here. AIS-A, which is the commercial one and is a lot more expensive. So what we recommend is Class B, which is for the leisure user and is more than adequate.
And does an AIS need to be registered at all?
It does need to be registered, and it needs to be registered with your native country, your flag state. And that gives you the MMSI number as well.
And is that used anywhere else on the boat?
It's based on the same MMSI as your ship's radio. So they can both be tied up together.
And how do you know if your equipment's working? Is there a way to check it?
The simplest way is to ask your friends on other boats if you are appearing on their AIS receiver sets. If not, I find the quickest way to find somebody is to look it up on Marine Traffic.
That's a website, isn't it?
It is a website and it's free.
marinetraffic.com, very useful website. Roger, can you just explain the difference between a boat AIS and a personal AIS, as this sometimes causes confusion?
Yes, a personal AIS is a man overboard beacon and it's registered to an individual. Each AIS personal overboard beacon needs to be attached to your life jacket. It has a unique number and it must be registered with the country. It's also very useful if these numbers are recorded on board your vessel and which life jacket each individual AIS is attached.
Is it possible to test an AIS beacon?
It is possible to test the MOB device, and it's highly recommended you do it before you arrive in Las Palmas. It will show up on your AIS as a test. It also has the possibility on some MOB beacons to send a DSC alert to your vessel to warn you that it's been activated. You should also check the battery expiry date to ensure that it's valid for the duration of the passage.
What about children's life jackets? Are they required to have AIS as well?
If the children are small and they're in permanent buoyancy life jackets, no, they do not have to have a personal AIS because it's unlikely that they will be able to manually operate it if they fell overboard.
It really only applies if they have auto-inflate jackets.
Yes, if they've got an auto-inflated, then it should be built into the jacket.
In the next video, we're going to look at the features on offer in a modern life jacket and guide you through some of the things to look for when choosing your own life jacket. Can you talk us through some of the add-ons, the additional equipment requirements that are needed to bring a standard life jacket up to an ocean life jacket?
Yes, each crew member must have their own fully equipped life jacket. It should have a whistle, an automatic light, the yacht's name or their own name, reflective tape, a crotch strap, a spray hood, and a personal AIS beacon. They should all be permanently fitted to the life jacket.
Are there any checks that a skipper or an individual crew member should do on their life jacket?
Yes, life jackets should be checked on a regular basis. In particular, they're not suffering from chafe or small pinholes, and to actually look at the light to make sure that that is fully functional. Spare rearming kits should also be available for each type of life jacket on board. And there are excellent videos on YouTube to show you how to do this.
Some high-end tethers are fitted with a strain indicator. Can you explain what this is for?
Yes, the strain indicator will open up if the line has been stretched. So if a wave knocks you across the deck, it will be strained. The strain gauge opens up, then this will need to be replaced. Also, you should inspect your tether for any signs of wear and tear, and if over 7 years old, should be replaced anyway.
And of course, don't forget to wash it in fresh water after every passage and put it away neatly.
Otherwise, it will end up green, nasty, and very smelly.
Can you talk us through the flare requirement?
Yes, the flares you require, and these are independent of any other flares you may have on board, such as in the life raft, is you require a minimum of 4 handheld red flares. 2 of these may be the electronic flares. These are LED flares, not laser. And you need 2 buoyant orange smoke flares. All of these flares will be SOLAS approved, and they need to be in date for the duration of the rally.
Any tips on where to stow the flares?
Yeah, the flares need to be stowed in a waterproof container, and it should also contain some gloves and some protective goggles so you don't burn yourself when you set them off. It's important that all the crew know how to operate these. The container should be kept where everybody knows where it is and readily accessible in the case of an emergency.
We talked about having a grab bag as an addition to your life raft when we were looking at the life raft section earlier. Can you just explain in a little bit more detail what this is?
Yes, the grab bag is to ensure that you have a little bit more comfort in your life raft. The life raft only has the essentials in it for just survival. So a grab bag should contain anything that's going to make your life easier, but it's very easy to overfill them, so we need to prioritize.
And can it only just be one bag, or can you have more than one?
You can have more than one bag, and you need a grab bag or grab bags for each life raft you have.
And do these need to be a special type of container?
Ideally, they need to be waterproof and very colourful, and to ensure that they will actually float when you fill them up.
Roger, what advice would you give people on how to plan the items to put into their grab bag?
You need to prioritise. So if you start off with the sort of number one, probably the most important thing is to inform people of your location and communicate them. So the top of my list in the grab bag would be an EPIRB and a satellite phone. My second consideration would be to consider the maintenance and protection and comfort whilst in the life raft. So I would consider things like sun cream and a nice inflatable cushion to sit on and a decent bailer. My third option would be anything medical, any prescription medicines, and in this case, sunburn cream. And the fourth would be comfort again, any extra water or water making equipment, and anything that's going to improve the morale, perhaps even a pack of cards.
There's a detailed list in the Rally Handbook if you want to refer to it. So any other tips for things that you might not necessarily store all the time in your grab bag, but pick up on the way out of the boat if you do have to leave in an emergency?
If you're in a hurry on your way out, the things to grab will be your passports, credit cards are most useful, anything on the chart table you might have, but it's on your way out. It's the immediate evacuation you're looking at. There is a list in the handbook and again on the website.
One of the items that you checked during the inspection are the fire extinguishers. Can you talk a little bit more about this part of the requirement?
Yes, you must have at least 2 fire extinguishers suitable for the size of boat. They need to be within their service date, but I stress this really is a minimum requirement. A fire risk assessment should be carried out on your boat, perhaps consulting your crew as well. You might consider a dry powder extinguisher in each cabin or near every exit. Fit an automatic in a gas extinguisher in the engine space. Perhaps a larger foam extinguisher may be kept in the cockpit locker. Some vessels even have a fire pump. Every boat has very different requirements. Hence, it's essential you do a full fire risk.
As part of the inspection, you'll be looking at the area of the galley on board the boat. What specifically are you looking for here?
The first thing we look for is a fire blanket and its location, so you don't have to reach over the cooker if you come to use it. We also check the security of the stove, that it won't come out in case of a knockdown or a capsize.
What do you advise people about crash bars and hanging straps?
Crash bars are very useful in front of the cooker so you don't fall into it. Restraining straps ideally should be offset to one side, so if you spill your pan you can move out of the way quickly. But again, a lot will depend on the setup of your galley on board your boat.
Of course, a galley can be quite a dangerous place on a boat, and we're checking for specific items, but do you have any other advice to give crews about general safety in the galley?
Yes, if it's your turn to cook, then the minimum you should have is an apron to protect yourself in case you spill it. Also to be wearing some footwear, preferably some sea boots.
I'm always very keen as well on making sure that sharp knives get either put away safely straight away or put them into the sink so they're not going to roll around. Boats I sail on are often covered in plenty of non-stick materials, and of course don't forget cupboard catches and making sure things can't fall out of cupboards. I know that for people doing an ocean passage for the first time, it's the amount of rolling the boat does that comes as a big surprise to them. It's quite a different motion on the open ocean than it is maybe on inshore sailing. And I think for some people it's a surprise just how many things start moving around mysteriously on the boat. There is a requirement for a medical kit on board the boat. Is that something you check when you're doing your inspection?
Yes, we do check the medical kit, and we also check they've got a first aid manual. Ideally, it should be in their own language, so if something happens, they can understand it. But we concentrate more on discussing what problems or ailments the crew might have, and then they can equip the boat accordingly.
Having a detailed ship's medical kit is a very detailed subject, and more than we have in this particular video. I just do want to mention for viewers that we have several presentations on the subject that have been given in our different seminars. These are recorded and they are available through the members area of the World Cruising Club website, where we talk in detail about how to organise your medical kit and give some tips on where you might purchase equipment for the kit or individual kits themselves. This brings us to the end of the equipment checklist, and I suppose to the end of our inspection in Las Palmas or any other port where you're joining a rally. What happens at the end of the visit, Roger? Is it a question of a tick in the box pass failure? Do you throw someone out if they fail? What's the process?
No, hopefully I've made some new friends at this point. The whole thing is to consider, although it's a very long list, we are there to ensure that they're going to be able to cross the ocean safely. And if there are a few items missing, then we give advice and we try and find solutions to the problem. No, people don't fail. We're not allowed failure. We're there to enjoy ourselves.
Generally, most boats are pretty well prepared. And I believe there's a prize as well for...
There is definitely a prize for the best prepared boat, and preparation is absolutely everything. If you're not prepared, you won't enjoy it.
I think that's a general rule for everything about ocean voyaging, is if you do your preparation before you go, you'll have a much more relaxed and happy and safe adventure crossing the ocean. I just want to thank Roger for his contributions, and just remind you that if you do feel the need for further training, Roger and his colleagues at Hamble School of Yachting run a number of specialist training courses for aspiring blue water cruisers, including the one I'm going to specifically recommend, which is the safety training, which will cover a lot of the items we've talked about in the video today. So you can go to their website at hamble.co.uk. Courses are run in other countries by other organisations. If you want to check in your own home country, go to your National Sailing Authority website and they should have links to further training.